Hi, welcome everyone to the Community Board 3 of Manhattan's Transportation, Public Safety, and Environment Committee here. We're going to do a roll call and then I'll get into some logistics for tonight.
Vincent Sarita.
Here.
Nancy Kong, present. Tanya Bates.
Present.
Lee Berman.
Present.
Ariana Dunn-Shu. Here. Sean Garcia.
Present.
Charlie Goldson. Michelle Cooper-Smith. President. Francisco LeBron. Elena Perez. July Velasquez. President. David Green.
Here.
Anel Hernandez.
Great. Well, first I wanted to welcome our new committee members, July. So welcome here. Just so you know, we have a DOT agenda item that is in Chinatown, and we have DOT has brought interpreters here with us this evening. So if you're requiring those services, if you just raise your hand and we can get you in touch with that. We are a hybrid meeting tonight, so we have. Okay, did you want to say anything?
Just if the interpreters can make the announcement in Chinese.
Sure.
Yeah, so, welcome to cases, interpreter, if you need our services, you, tell us, thank you. 我们这边有一个中文翻译服务，请各位如果需要服务的话，就是告诉我们一下，我们这边有设备，谢谢。需要。
And I'll just mention to you tonight, we are a hybrid meeting, so we have folks joining us online as well as here in the room. If you are online and you are a presenter, if you could raise your hand so we can promote you, that would be helpful for us. And for folks here in the room, Community Board 3, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, has this on our 250th birthday. What's your wish for America? Okay, yeah. And we have sticky notes. Very colorful sticky notes here now. For you to fill out and pop on the board. We appreciate that.
Could you also announce that committee members must be in person in order to be present?
Yes, I'll remind our committee members in email already, but yeah, this is a hybrid meeting, and just so everyone is aware, when a hybrid meeting, you still need to be in person to be recorded that you are present. And to be able to vote if we were actually doing resolutions. So just a reminder of that.
Francisco's online and I was trying to talk. I'll promote it in the panel so we can participate and won't be present.
Right. Okay. So I'll just say we have two agenda items, three agenda items tonight. We have EDC here presenting Chinatown Connections. It's an informational presentation from EDC, so we appreciate you guys coming back out again. And we'll have them come up here in a minute. And after that, we have Clinton Street Neighbors, an informational presentation on safety concerns on Clinton Street. And then after, we're going to be finalizing our district needs for this committee. So that is our three items. So again, for just folks joining us online, if you're a presenter, please just raise your hand so we have that done. And with that, I will hand it over to EDC. I'm going to bring up the presentation.
Yeah. So you have 2 members online.
Good to go, Vinny?
Let me share your presentation and we should be good to go.
What?
Okay.
Okay, hello everyone and good evening. I'm glad to be back again. I think we were here not too long ago. As Vinny said, tonight it's more of an informational update, which we've been doing quite a bit with the community. We've been to CB1, to CB3, to a lot of stakeholders, and just today we're at LPC. So today is another session where we want to talk to everyone and kind of continue to inform you about projects. So the agenda for tonight is, next slide, Just again, sort of a project overview, how did we get here with this project? Then we'll go into community engagement, which Marlo will discuss. And talk about all the community engagement we've done to date and will continue to do for this project going forward. And so we have not stopped, we'll continue to do a lot of engagement. Then we'll go into the Chinatown Welcome Gateway, which is another important part of our project. We'll go and review the DCLA lit process for bringing on an artist to design Gateway. Jennifer, my mom's artist was selected through a very robust engagement with the community. We'll be presenting tonight. You will get to see it here. Then we'll go back to the redesign of Kinlaw Square as to how we got to the design we have today. So next slide. So just a project overview, and we want to really emphasize where this project came from. It actually came from the community. Next slide. It came out of the, we go to the next slide. It came out of the 2022 DRI, which was the Chinatown Downtown Revitalization Initiative that was led by the New York State. And then tonight we have Jeanette Rush here tonight. Thank you, Jeanette, for coming out. In case there are any questions about how this process was done back in 2022. It was very much a robust process that was led by the community. It was created with an LPC, which is a local community plan that had the community members, and we have a list of some of the community members who we've been reaching out to for the Chinatown connection process, who was part of this initiative to actually come up with the goals and what they want to accomplish for the neighborhood. So some of the main goals really had to do with the public realm. All these improvements, supporting the needs of the community, supporting the economy, bolstering neighborhood identity and culture, talking about public realm, quality of life, supporting connections with the surrounding communities, really looking at strategic enhancements and streetscape enhancements. So it was really a robust, led by the community to get to the point as to what the goals for our project was. So next slide. Coming out of the DRI, we took everything that was heard from the community, and the state was very generous in putting in $11.5 million for the initiatives that was generated by the community. Along with that, DOT and the city also generously donated a sum of money to bring it up to $55.8 million. And what that comprises of on three major elements, which is called the Chinatown Connections Project. The first one is to redesign the public realm, Kinlaw Square, improve the navigation, improve pedestrian safety, expand the public space, and all within the super complicated geometric, intersection, which I think anyone who lives in this neighborhood, has been to Mott Street, and understands this area, how complicated that intersection is. The other very important component, and we spent a lot of time making sure we engaged with the community, was to find artists for the Welcome Gateway. I know, as you will hear from Jennifer and Mom, she's doing, again, reaching out to a lot of stakeholders. Some of you might have already met her, but she's continuing her outreach and talking to the community and to the members to understand what it means to create a Welcome Gateway to this very important public realm plaza. It's again to really cultivate and really look at the cultural heritage of this neighborhood and in particular Chinatown. The last component, which is around $4 million, was to really beautify Park Row. Park Row is also something that connects us to the rest of City Hall. And it's really to really kind of really enhance the pedestrian experience and really bring the folks from the bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, all the way into Chinatown. So that is the third component, and together we call it the Chinatown Connections Project. So next slide. So the redesign of Kinlaw Square includes all these elements that we're talking about. Realigning the intersection for public safety to really deal with the pedestrian safety of crossing these crazy intersections where, kids and parents with strollers and senior citizens are dashing across and then waiting in the median and then figure out which way to go. There's traffic cops are there to navigate the crazy intersections. The other component is expanding Kinloss work. We've heard loud and clear from the community during the DRI process that we want to really have more public space and really allow the community an opportunity and a place, a very planned space for people to do things, have events, hold events, commemorate two of the most important monuments that are out there, the Kinloss War Memorial Arch, as well as the Lynch's statue, which right now resides very close to each other on the current Shannon Square Plaza. So next slide. So we also have the Welcome Gateway, which we are starting the process of really kind of getting into what it means to the community, what it means to Jennifer Lemon. She used to live in Chinatown. She will talk a lot more about what her process is. And before we do that, we'll talk about how we got to selecting the artists for this very important element of the Chinatown project. So the gateway is to highlight Chinatown's cultural heritage. And then we're gonna take the final design and really start to look at all the elements that will give it the connection and the connective tissue that the Chinatown Connection projects really needs. Next slide. So beautification part road, another very important element. We're early in the process for this. We've done a survey of the existing park road conditions. And again, with the generosity of the DRI, New York State grant, we have money to do some work there to really beautify Park Row and also make it part of the connection to Chatham Square. We know that right now it's currently being used. It is still a route where the buses come through. It's also where the pedestrians are crossing and coming over from City Hall and Brooklyn Bridge. It's also a means for emergency emergency vehicles coming through, as well as also bikes. So, you know, in 2026, we're looking at all the modes of transportation that is coming through this area. So these are what you see right now, what we are trying to address, and it is the Chinatown Connections Project. So next slide. So where are we today? We are still continuing to reach out to everyone. You'll see us over and over again. You might recognize Ishita and Chit and Janielle. They've been out there, myself, Sarah's been out there. POT's been at every single meeting we've had, and we've had numerous meetings. And we're also out there with Jennifer and March. She's done a tremendous amount of outreach, and I think in the deck, as we turn to Marvel, you'll start to see the kind of outreach we're doing. Perhaps we're not getting to everyone, but we're hoping that with some of the meetings we're having, others are actually telling other folks to come and participate and be part of the CB3 meetings. We're at CB1. We have Chinatown Connection working group meetings with stakeholders and also elected officials, representatives of the community. So we welcome you to attend all these meetings and come and talk to us, because I think it's important. It's an important project, and it's important to listen to your voices today. So I think we're gonna turn it over now to talk about community and engagement and stuff. And
Thank you, and thank you for letting us come back and speak to you a little bit more about our process. As Kathleen mentioned, I'm Ishita Gore, I'm the director at Marble Folks for Urban Design Planning, and have been leading with this really robust kind of design team and DOT EDC team, the design and community engagement for this process, for this project. We understand that a lot of people feel very strongly about this intersection, but everybody agrees that it is not safe and welcoming. So our community engagement process has been really built around that, and really understanding what works and what doesn't work, and how a better public space, a better revitalized Chinatown looks like. The next slide. As Kathleen mentioned, we are really taking a layered approach to our community and stakeholder engagement to this project, for this project. We're doing on the grounds work, talking to community organizations, doing pop-ups in the community, standing in front of, you know, residential buildings, in the plaza itself, talking to people who are using the spaces, but then also going to senior centers, to schools. And we have a complete list on the next page, which I can go through in deep depth if needed, but we're really trying to do that on the grounds approach. In addition to that, we did have an online survey where we had almost 200 responses where we asked for people for their zip codes to identify their location, and 70% of those responses were from Chinatown zip codes. Additionally, as Kathleen mentioned, the CCWG, the Chinatown Connections Working Group, has been predated our team's involvement in this project, but because of the wide range of different pieces and all of the different stakeholders and interests in our community and our public space. This community, the CCWG has really been critical in providing their feedback and, you know, getting a glimpse on red flags or anything, like helping us navigate this, the issues and the opportunities of this project. The other thing that I wanted to highlight, as Kathleen said, is our hope has been that we are planting seeds that multiply and, you know, create awareness of this project. But if there are glaring missed opportunities, please reach out to us. We are happy to have those conversations. Especially like at last CB3 meeting, there were some you know, topics and business owners that were identified that we should be speaking to and may have missed, and we have made that concerted effort to engage with them between now and hopefully the end of summer, so in September, October. We've also been out and, you know, enjoying the summer last year, and we hope to do the same this year. I think this year it's been a little bit more challenging with the World Cup and getting to open, like, you know, getting into some of those cabling activities that were happening, the festivals that were happening, because those haven't been scheduled yet. But we are planning to be at Smith Houses, that Jennifer is already in touch with AISA, with the TA board, to make sure that their voices are heard, and then we have some other additional planned engagement that we're working with, especially with the seniors, to share the plan and get their feedback, and other community organizations. And then this last slide on the next one is really a list of those engagement, and we have an engagement report that we published on the website for this project, which is ChinatownConnections.nyc or .gov or co or something.
NYC.
NYC?
Yeah.
ChinatownConnections.nyc, but maybe we can send you the link for the project. And there's an engagement report, which is almost a 60-page report, which speaks to exactly who we've spoken to, who we have, in what format, and what we have heard so far. And then just to underscore the point that this is just one point, this is a long process. It started with the DRI. We are still in preliminary design, and we will continue to, you know, reach out as much as possible to ensure that everybody is aware. And if they aren't, then we appreciate your help in helping spread the word that we get the correct feedback. So far, what we have heard from the community on the next slide has been the cornerstone for these three overarching design goals for our project, which is to ensure that this intersection is safe and connected, both for all modes of transportation. And when we say transportation, it's really modes of movement. People are our primary stakeholder in this. We want to make sure that there is a public space that is able to celebrate and share culture. What does it mean to be a public space in Chinatown, not just anywhere, but in Chinatown, in Manhattan's Chinatown? And then how do we start creating a space that allows people not only to feel like they need to get through this intersection as quickly as possible, but someplace that they may want to pause for, you know, drinking a cup of coffee or buying their lunch from the vibrant businesses on Mott Street or Pell or Doyers, and support those local businesses. Drink their bubble tea or something, you know, any uses, the flexibility of uses. So that's sort of the overarching community engagement update that we have. I'm going to transition to our next topic, and happy to take questions afterwards. With the Chinatown Welcome Gateway. The Chinatown Welcome Gateway, as already mentioned by Kathleen, was one of the components of the DRI plan. The process, which is the next slide. The process, the DRI process led to the selection of a subgroup, a committee, that helped write the Chinatown Welcome Gateway brief that really served as a document, as a guiding document for the selection of the artist that would eventually design this Welcome Gateway. The process was led by DCLA, Department of Cultural Affairs. And they were, very, very adamant about how it needed to be a community-driven, a community input-based process. The Welcome Gateway Design Brief was created by the subgroup, as I mentioned, which was comprised of a group of community leaders that then helped write this brief. It is also on our website on ChinatownConnections.nyc, and the members included the United Overseas Fujianese Association of America, a community Nolan Chen, community leader, Wellington Chen from Chinatown Bid, Gay Mui from American Legion, Raymond Sang from Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, as well as Cheryl Wing Ji Wong, I apologize, local artist. And really, the thesis statement for this brief was that a public art piece intended to highlight Chinatown, Manhattan's cultural heritage, and fulfill a long-standing community desire for an iconic symbol serving as a beacon and wayfinding feature for visitors. Next slide. The brief was written over a 6-month exercise or 6 meetings over a 6-month period, where these members met and just deliberated and heard from community members and wrote a design brief that was anchored in these 4 design guidelines. The first one was that the Chinatown Gateway should be a multifaceted experience that ensures that the Welcome Gateway is not a monolith, but an interactive experience that extends beyond its physical structure. The second was that it should be a guiding symbol that the design of the Welcome Gateway be clear and recognizable symbol, serving as a beacon and wayfinding feature for visitors. The design for the Welcome Gateway should be an integral part of the community, creating a surrounding space that invites community members to gather and rest. And lastly, it should honor Chinatown's rich cultural heritage, celebrate diversity, and foster a sense of belonging. This design brief was then circulated and served as sort of the cornerstone for the artist selection process, which is now highlighted on the next slide. The artist selection process is really broken down into 3 phases. The initiation phase that happened with the writing of the brief, and the selection of the panel members who would then eventually select the artist, as well as the community is able to be participating in that panel and provide their input. I do want to highlight that while this is not a percent for art, because percent for art is at 1% of the total project cost going to the project, this is the process is based on the percent for art. The allocation for funding is through the DRI and is actually more than 1% of this project. As we know, it's 2.5 million. The artist selection process was also a community-led design process, which included, and I'll walk through all of these steps in step by step, but really included panel meetings. We invited the community to provide who should be shortlisted to interview. We provided the community to join meetings where we interviewed the panelists and provided their feedback. And then also a new term that I learned from that process was the passion pleas, where people were able to make passionate pleas on selecting the 4 shortlisted panelists. Where we are today is somewhere between the artist selection column and the design development column. In the design development column, it's really listing what is to come from Jennifer Wenma's team, which is that there will be a public conceptual design presentation by the artist, there will be Q&A, there will be more open community engagement, as well as a PDC conceptual review in the future. Where we are today is that we think it was important for Jennifer to come in and just introduce herself and show and share what she has been up to so far before she digs into the process and her concept. So on the next slide, it really is showing what all we did in first part of the artist selection, and by we I'm actually collectively say DCLA, EDC, DOT, Marble Team. And so we hosted 3 info sessions, 2 in person, 1 virtual, where the artists and community members were invited to learn more about what the city and what DCLA was really looking for, what the constraints were to be a artist applicant, and to submit what they would need to submit for their work. On the next slide, it showed a photo from our first artist panel meeting, which was the Passionate Plea meeting, where the public was invited to attend. We collectively went through 30 artists that were presented by DCLA. We had 50+ community members who then were participated, and we shortlisted 4 artists and 2 alternates to participate in Design Charrettes. This was happening all in June. June 15th was the date for the application to be selected or the application to apply to be an artist. We had those the panelists panel meeting on the 25th. On the 29th and the 30th of July, we invited the 4 selected artists to present their work to the team, because eventually we have to design a cohesive public space. We wanted to make sure that we could work well together, that the goals of the process, and they understand that this is a public space, so it has to go through the capacity to go through the public review process. And I'm really understanding their approach to public work. And then at those meetings, the public was also invited to participate and share their thoughts and inform the final artist selection, which then, on the next slide. Oh, I already talked about this slide. Next slide. In August of last year, we finally selected Jennifer Wenma, who was unanimously selected and voted by the committees, and with input from the community as well as from experts in the DCLA work. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for hosting us, CB3, and the introduction from EDC and from Marvel. And hello, neighbors and friends. I came to Chinatown, Manhattan, Chinatown in 1999. This is when I moved to Chinatown, actually on Division Street. And can you hear me okay? Want to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I moved to the States from China in 1986. I moved to Oklahoma City and lived there for 8 years. So talk about a cultural desert for me personally. So when I moved to Chinatown in 1999, it was in some ways a homecoming and a rediscovery because of the vitality and vibrancy of Chinatown. And I called that Chinatown home for 24 years and lived there, worked there. And I continue to work there. I actually have an exhibition that will open, I think, Chinatown Gallery in August. So August 14th, I invite everybody to that opening and to have more conversations. So today I'm here to meet everyone for the first time in the public sense. I was selected in last August, but I didn't come fully on board until March because it took a lot to have the contract and all of that process to be done with the city. But I've been thinking about the project for a long time. And because I was actually, as many of you know, that this project probably this is its 3rd iteration, and I actually was in the design bit in previous lives as well. So thinking about what Chinatown needs, one of the things that's very important to me is a public engagement. Okay, actually, what's the image on the slide is a project I'm doing for 70 Mulberry Street. I was commissioned for the renovation of 70 Mulberry, as many of you, is a building that's beloved in the heart of Chinatown that burned down early 2020. So I have been commissioned back in 2022 for that work. The building is still in the process being built, but this is the work that I've I've designed and we've done the conceptual and preliminary presentations already. The next image, just to give you a little bit of background, the kind of work I've done. I'm a contemporary artist. I worked internationally across many venues. This is another public and permanent piece. This piece is in Macau. So it has this paper cut sculpture that flies in the sky and then also take the form of this garden on the ground. A third image is, next slide, is an opera I made. This was when it was shown at Lincoln Center Festival. So we premiered in New York in Lincoln Center Festival in 2016 and is toured around the world, including in Taiwan, Macau, and Singapore. So you can see my work is quite varied, but the core of the foundation of any artwork is actually research and engagement with the public. So next slide, I just want to talk about, and being from Chinatown, have lived and worked here for 20 plus years. I did not want to just rely on my own impression of what Chinatown means to me, but that what it means to various people, right? So the major stakeholders from the Fujianese Association to American Legion and BID, Chinatown BID, these were the first people I had conversations with. And since then I've met with CCBA, Think Chinatown individuals. I've met with many of the board presidents and board members and some shareholders of various residence communities in Chinatown, such as Smith Houses, Chatham Towers, Chatham Green, Confucius Plaza. And also I'm visiting after school programs as well as senior centers. And there are more engagement coming. And the way I'm doing the engagement is first quite small meetings, one-on-one or several on one. It does mean that it takes me a little slower to get to more people, but I do feel like to build trust, it really needs to have one-on-one meetings or sitting down for an hour, 2 hours, have conversations and meet repeatedly. I will be doing more public engagement, maybe at block parties, at broader community meetings, but I feel like sometimes those conversations are really short and clipped, but when you want to have more intimacy and engagement, it does require more closer range conversations, right? But I am getting to more and more people. I think the next round, more schools and more senior centers, and really want to engage with the business communities as well, not only service-based organizations, but because businesses are one of the most vibrant component to Chinatown to keep it so interesting and dynamic. Next slide. These are what I was talking about, the major stakeholders to Kim Lao Square. Okay, next. I have taken notes from each meeting. If people are interested, we have a lot more than this, but I just want to talk a little bit about things that I've heard from the community, and it's a huge range, right? Everyone in the room knows Chinatown is not a monolithic community. We are a wide range of people, come from geographically very different places, culturally different, language-wise. So there's just such a wide range of things I've heard. But definitely there is a strong need for there to be a balance of traditional Chinese identity to that of Chinese American and contemporary. I know that we have to be bold and iconic. This is a moment we've been looking for Chinatown to have that postcard moment, or now what the kids say, the Instagrammable moment. People can take a photo and say, oh, we know this is Manhattan Chinatown. I've learned a lot from the veterans community, what contribution they made to Chinatown and then the larger Asian American diaspora and story in America. And also, how can this space be a way of storytelling for the complexity of our neighborhood? And also there's a lot of intergenerational members that want to be incorporated. And then there is this also very welcoming side of the Chinese mentality of welcome to all cultures, right? That we welcome you. And that's one question I've been asking a lot when I meet. The title of the piece is called Welcome Gateway, right? What is a welcome? What does welcome mean to you? Who are we welcoming? So there's just a lot of really interesting conversations that come out of that. Sense of belonging, sense of respect. These are huge things I've heard a lot. And that Chinatown is a spiritual and psychological home for the larger Chinese or Asian diaspora. That I also echo with a lot. Having lived in American Midwest, this idea of a place where Chinese people gather and have a vibrant community and culture is very important to me. Next. And then there's some, I've also kind of separated out, like there's some needs and wants for the project to serve. Things like, think about how parade is a ritual that ties many Chinese traditions together. How can this work help alleviate the chokehold of congestion of the site? Can you help programming to attract a continuous flow to Chinatown? So it's not just a one-time thing that people look at it and feel like they know it already, but can bring people back and again and again. And a strong proponent for tradition being presented in the sculpture. I've also heard things like, I don't want to walk out of my building, feel like I live in a prison yard. I think it is not a loss to many people in this room that we're facing some real challenges in our community. While public art or art cannot solve practical problems, right? We can't solve real estate or gentrification, high prices of rent. But what I think there's an opportunity for public art can do is counter some of the feelings that might be in people's mind. So when I spoke with this person who said that, I said, okay, when this person feels like I live in the prison yard when I walk out, I don't want to feel like that. What is the opposite of that? Is it whimsy? Is it a sense of freedom? Is it a sense of joy? Well, art can bring these feelings into the work, can make the Kim Lao Square to be more joyful, right? That's how we combat some of those possibly negative feelings people might have. So I do think art has a big role that can play in the public realm. And some people told me and recognized what a huge challenge is to have one project that have a unifying element that can rally the whole complexity of the demographics. Others pointed out respect, being friendly, environmental safety, cleaner, fresher air. People talked about how to bring nightlife back to Chinatown. How can we create a place for kids to come that is not based on a money economy? So these are just some of the challenges that we face for this project. And I feel the enormity of the weight of responsibility on me, as well as the honor to have this work, to make this work for the community. I feel very strongly the weight of responsibility, and I want people, friends to know that I take this very seriously and I work really hard in trying to meet these expectations as much as I can. I also want to just take a few moments to talk about the research I've done. So there's two prongs of research I do in any work, particularly public art. One is outreach to the public. The other one is the research I do in my studio. So there's a lot of research I've done into the tradition. Yes, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So for example, gateway, what does gateway mean, right? I talked about what does welcoming mean to Chinatown. What does gateway mean? So for many of you, you already know that the letters on the right-hand side of the screen, this is a word, gate, men for Chinese, for the Chinese character, which you can really see how it has in Chinese architecture, it is reflected. So I've been studying a lot about philosophy, what we say about gateway, about a doorway. I've been studying traditional architectural and landscape design, other traditions from horticulture to even solar terms in the seasons, because this is an outdoor piece. How does the seasons impact an artwork? I think we have our own very unique perspective from the Chinese perspective. I think that could be very interesting. But also we're in America. We're in New York. This is the epicenter of also art and culturally speaking, for a global community. So what is American and global historical references? I'm also thinking about scientific, quantum physics, wormholes, gateways. I think it could be very interesting, right? We shouldn't be pigeonholed into only one way of thinking, like the Chinese way. We are vibrant individuals living in contemporary life. How can we bring that perspective in? So contemporary art references and other Chinese and I think we lost the presentation. I'm not seeing it on the screen anymore.
Keep on going. I'm gonna see if I get up. It is shown on my screen, which is odd.
Yeah, no problem. So one thing I do want to address is that when I was doing the research, many folks talked about paifang or pailo, which is an architectural element in traditional Chinese architecture. And many Chinatowns around the world have it. And there is definitely a very strong voice in our community that wants it. But what does it mean to present that in today, 2026, right? So I've done a lot of research, the elements of a traditional paifang, pailo, how can that work? I've also done a lot of research. My team and I, actually, it's not just me, a project like this is just not myself, but my team, we've been looking at people who have come to this land, who have lived on this land. So we are the latest caretakers of Chinatown, this land, but there's been indigenous people, there's been waves of immigrants that have come before. So we're a culture that we really honor our ancestors. So I think our ancestors are not only living from China, old China, but also ancestors that has lived on this land. And how can we bring that in a more harmonious and cohesive way? How can we create these narratives and stories? These are the tasks at hand. I don't have a design to show everyone, but I do hope to come back soon and show a design, a concept, and get your input. But today really is to say hello and to say that I'm doing this research. This is a fundamental foundation to my process. And I hope to meet many of you in the coming weeks and months. I think I will leave my email with CB3 board if you need to reach out to me. I am here with open arms. I'm sorry I can't be there today because my trip was scheduled way before the commitment of the CB3. So I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I hope to meet with all of you in person soon. And thank you so much again for this honor and privilege.
Thank you so much, and I apologize. I was dropped off of Zoom on the computer grid that we were sharing, but it should be showing back up here shortly.
I think in the end, yeah, there's just some images of some past, we can just look at them. So this is paifang, a traditional gateway, guardians of the gateway, right? So dragon is not our only mascot, I'm thinking, right? So what are the other interesting things can we bring into the conversation? We can go to the next image. Landscape design, this is a piece that's going to be outdoors, to contemporary art, references to Manhattan from indigenous time to all the way to now. These are all the things that we're looking at. I think this is fair. Yes, I do want to talk about this. Next slide. So I've been working very closely with the Marvel team, who's been really wonderful and collaborative. We meet weekly, and I am very much kept abreast of all the design development on the square. And we're taking special care about Kim Laud War Memorial and Lin Zexu Memorial, two existing sculptures that's already a part of our neighborhood and marker of our neighborhood. So how can this third piece pay honor to that. So we're not crowding this square. This is something we take very seriously. And how can this public art piece can be harmoniously integrated into the overall park design is something we're looking at on a weekly basis. So I want to ensure everyone that this is something is in the forefront of our mind as we proceed with the art and design. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Very tough act to follow, but now we're gonna move into the redesign of Pinamont Square, just for reference, my name is Casey Burrell, I'm with the Department of Transportation. This is kind of the significant part of the project from a transportation perspective. I'll go to the next slide. And so in the interest of time, we'll go through some of these pretty quickly. They're from past presentations, but just to remind everyone of the square today. There's long crossings across the Bowery. The existing two memorials, the statues of the War Memorial and the Save statue are on the square today on the south side. The space is relatively small today, I think like those really large events. And kind of a general thought about the square today is that it's chaotic. You're crossing the street, you're fighting against cars that are coming into you, and trying to really rush out here, not really so people want to eat. Next slide. Just looking at who's using the square today, the majority of users in the square today are pedestrians, with almost 10,000 people in the peak hour. Almost 80% of people in the square are people walking. So that's really our primary user of the square today. Next slide. However, when looking at how much space is given to those people, 66% of the square today, it says paved roadways. With only 33% to actual people who are using space on sidewalks or in the squares. So we really want to make sure we're trying to accommodate like right size and not space given to each of these. Next slide. From a very high level kind of design principle standpoint, from a roadway perspective, we just want to reiterate that standard four-way intersections are safer. They're more predictable for pedestrians, they function more smoothly from a vehicle operation standpoint. Straight through travel movements for vehicles are more efficient and safer than turning movements. Shorter crosswalks reduce exposure, is more accessible and easier for pedestrians. This is a neighborhood that has a lot of seniors in the neighborhood, as well as parents who are raising their kids, and those people who need more time across the street. So a shorter crossing is better for them. The distance between intersections improves vehicle circulation, so clusters of intersections are chaotic and congested. And from a public space perspective, a larger, more controllable space is more flexible to provide more options for programming events for the community. Next slide. When we started this process, we kind of have a very typical design process from the DOT perspective. We have to work within our existing property. We're working with the building lines. We're not coming in to tear down buildings and refigure everything. We look to kind of align the intersection to meet the travel patterns, really wanting to create four-way standard traffic movements. We then work around some of the existing conditions, but recenter them if needed to create a more decent design. And then we prioritize creating the largest public space possible part of this project, but really unique community. Next slide. Just kind of like considering some of the alternatives that were also considered part of this process was renovating the square in place. That does have some serious challenges where it doesn't fix any of the transportation needs. We still have a high percentage of vehicles who are turning to pedestrians. The crossings stay the same. Base overall stays the same. It really wouldn't meet some of the challenges that we've heard from to really fix some of the public space issues here. Next slide. What if we made it a circle? What if it was a traffic circle? In general, traffic circles are highly inefficient from a CPS processing standpoint. They're also very chaotic for people to cross the foot. They require very complicated signal timing, wide roadways, and that would probably wind up with a smaller square lane that day. And it would still have a very congested feel in a square surrounded by traffic on all sides. Next slide. What if the square is moved to the eastern side, to connect more to the Confucius Plaza? This would still create pretty convoluted vehicular travel patterns. It wouldn't really shorten some of those crossings across Bowery, and it would result in a square either the same size or slightly smaller. The next slide. So the design that was chosen was to switch the plaza from the south to the north. This allows for a direct connection for people traveling along St. James up the Bowery and from Worth Street to East Broadway. It creates standard flow intersections which are safe for pedestrians. It creates a wider public space and it simplifies the overall operation. Next slide. And what this does is it allows us to recenter pedestrian space. It makes the square up to 50% for pedestrians who are the user by shifting some of that space into the public space and the square. Next slide. Just from an analysis perspective, we are still fairly early. We are at the point where we are taking the design concept created by Marvel. We're looking at underground constraints that are really driving some of the utility impacts for this project. And taking the DOT traffic studies that's in progress and kind of merging them all together at this point. So we're kind of still in the preliminary design phase. We don't have final results yet. We will be coming back as the design progresses and kind of narrow down all the different considerations from an operations perspective and from kind of detailed design perspective. Next one. Just a reminder, pedestrians are the largest mode of travel in the square. From a vehicular standpoint, the vehicle volumes are relatively consistent across the entire day with about 1,800 vehicles in hours. And the weekend volumes match the weeknight volume. So it's a relatively consistent location, which is typical of being near a large transportation node, such as Berkeley. Next slide. For pedestrians, pedestrian volumes are higher on the southwest side of the square today. The most used crosswalk is Crossing Park Road on the south side. And today, 61% pedestrians are crossing in a conflict-free crossing. So that means that crossing and crosswalk of cars are not going to be. Next slide. Today in the square, there are 7 conflict-free crosswalks where you're crossing without vehicles turning across you. There are 5 where you do have crosswalks. The average crosswalk length today is 56 feet, and the maximum crosswalk length is 90. Next slide. In the proposal, we're actually adding 1 new crosswalk as part of the design. It would be a crosswalk that does have conflict with vehicles. The average crosswalk length is reduced by 10 feet, or 6 feet. The maximum crosswalk length is reduced 17 feet, 17 feet. And where turning vehicles are turning across the crosswalks and pedestrians, the total number is much lower. So you're not competing with those many vehicles who are trying to get to the destination as you thought. Next one. From a vehicular standpoint, today, there's a lot of delay at the intersection due to the complex signal timing and the close signals and intersections. These arrows represent the top 5 movements in the square today, which represent 45% of the traffic. So a very small number of movements are a big bulk of the traffic moving through the square. There's the elbow movement from St. James to Worth Street, the through movement from St. James to Bowery, and the through movement from East Broadway to Worth. In total, these top 4 movements combined represent 510 seconds of delay for people driving through the square. In the proposal, next slide. That total delay is reduced by 14% to 437 seconds. Not a magical increase, but it is an improvement for people driving through the square. And the maximum delay movement is 60%. These are preliminary results. We're going to have more information to share as everything's more finalized. This is kind of some of the initial takeaways for the preliminary design stage that we're at. Next slide. From a pedestrian and vehicle interaction perspective, today 61% of pedestrians are crossing conflict crossings. At crosswalks where people are crossing and there's cars turning into them, there are 940 vehicles turning through crosswalks today, and they must yield to 2,500 pedestrians. These are very high numbers, which you don't typically see at the same time. The crosswalk across Bowery, that's this northern crosswalk across Bowery, which has over 500 people crossing in peak hour. There are 350 vehicles who have to turn through that intersection while people are crossing. So they're looking for opposing vehicles, they're looking at people. It's very complicated. There's a lot of near misses. And that would also lead to a lot of people feeling very unsafe when crossing. Yeah. Next slide. In the proposal, 55% of pedestrians are still crossing conflict-free crossings. At the crosswalks that have conflicts, we're reducing the number of vehicles that are pushing by 47% by converting those turn movements to bridge movements. And at the crosswalk of the highest conflict, which would be this crosswalk across Worth Street, the number of vehicles is reduced to 170 vehicles, and it's a right turn, which is safer than a left turn, because you're not yielding to the postal turn. Next slide. From a bicycle perspective, we're looking at making a kind of minor change to the bicycle network by consolidating movements to the south side of East Broadway, connecting to the path that exists on Point Royal. This kind of shifts a lot of bike movements away from the square, so people at the square won't be competing with people trying to go on the square on a bicycle. Next slide. From a bus perspective, the bus stops in general remain in their current locations, and with the reorganization, we're straightening out a couple of the bus routes. So the N22 would make a continuous movement, and then the other buses would still be in conformance there. Next slide, just for kind of next steps for the analysis perspective, we're continuing to refine the traffic study as design progresses and kind of unify the underground, the above ground analysis. We'll be presenting additional updates on the proposed signal timing and the curve management strategy as design progresses. That is, yes.
Excellent. Well, I actually want to give you a hand because I really appreciate you guys coming back here and giving a presentation of like what we just saw here this evening. The outreach, the team itself, again, Marvel, DOT, EDC, Jennifer, Wenmao, really working together. So I really appreciate you just showing that inner workings of how you are kind of approaching the project. And again, just giving such detailed information. And for everyone here joining us online, all of this is going to be on our website, the presentation. This is a hybrid meeting, a recording will be there. So you really can like immerse yourself if you want to do that. The Chinatown Connection Working Group, there's a webpage just for that group. That's all the materials that working group sees. You can see that all the way from what a year and a half ago of all the work that group has done. So again, really thank you to you all for coming out here tonight. For folks in the room that would like to speak, I have a speaker form up here. I have one individual who signed up to speak. If you'd like to speak on this agenda item or the next item, you have speaker forms here for you to just sign up on.
And one person online.
And one person online. Thank you. So two people. Yes, for folks joining us online, if you could just put your hand up, we will allow you to speak. And so why don't we start online this time?
I just allowed the phones ending in 115. They can speak.
Okay, go ahead. Phone ending in 115. Hello, if you're joining us online and your phone is ending 115, you may speak. Okay, it sounds like you have audio issues because we are not hearing you in the room. So why don't we go to the next one?
Okay, this is Irene Wu. She can
Hello.
speak.
Hi,
Good.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Irene. You have just 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, right, like, why is it that the funding is going to redesign Kim Lau Square, right? I mean, the whole point is a welcome gateway, welcome arch, right? Like nobody, like there's no specific, is there a specific reason why, you know, this is taking place at Kim Lau Square? And then also, you know, the real question is, the Kim Lau Arch is a memorial, and the intended, I guess, the plaza is a gathering space, and you know, for people to be, you know, spending time outdoors. Like, I don't see how it's appropriate for a memorial to be for that space to be or to have a memorial. And then on top of that, can that space have 2 arches? If the arch is even still, something that's under consideration. And, and I have spoken to, people in the neighborhood and, businesses about the impact that the redesign will have to the community. And, it hasn't been positive. And on Mother's Day, right, there were, just speaking about the traffic, right? So Mother's Day, there was a lot of road closures. And as a result of that, restaurants were severely impacted by that. And so it shows you how important it is to maintain traffic flow within the area for the businesses to be able to survive. And I feel like the redesign will cut off the flow of traffic to Chinatown, and it's not going to revitalize Chinatown. And I thought this whole project is to revitalize Chinatown. And if businesses cannot survive in Chinatown, how is it even going to be Chinatown?
All right, thank you, Irene. I appreciate you. And EDC, I'd like you just to, again, just talk a little bit about the DRI funding and how the projects were.
Yeah. Yes, actually Jeanette is here. She would be the best candidate to talk about the DRI process. And I do know that Irene, recognizing that she only had 2 minutes, had about 5 comments. So Irene, please, if you want to respond to our email address, we would love to continue dialogue with you outside of the CB3 meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll
Yes.
just kind of press that in here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeanette Rapp from the New York State Department of State. We run the downtown revitalization initiative. The state's divided into 10 regions. New York City is one region. Chinatown received the 20 million grant from the DRI in I want to say it was announced in 2021. The process is that the community applies for the grant, communities across the state. It's where they apply, the mayor or the supervisor in New York City is to the borough president's office. So former borough president Taylor Brewer worked with numerous groups here in Chinatown. I believe in Chinatown was one of the places that worked to start the process, but all the groups were prepared. They were selected as the winning community that year. Once the community is selected, the state is a guest in your community. We bring in consultants. And the first thing we do is create a local planning committee. We'll see we call, we've got the Landmark Preservation Commission, but for us, it's a local planning committee. We don't put on that maybe elected officials and government, it's all community organizations and such. We also do extensive outreach. The first thing we do is we ask the community to create its vision of what it wants, its goals and its strategy. We had 3 public meetings, it's becoming right out of COVID still. So, but what we heard was that pedestrians really felt unsafe. There was a lot of people who really wanted more lighting, not lighting for vehicles, but lighting for pedestrians. They wanted to feel safer. Chinatown was hit from to 9/11, Sandy, COVID, Asian sort of hate or whatever. And so safety and pedestrian safety was a big plus. We also heard that we didn't have enough space. Every inch of your parts is used and that's really important. So what we do during the DRI process is we put out a call for project. People have lots of great ideas, but we have fun ideas. They're capital dollars. And so the call for projects was released, projects were submitted. We first would see that as building a basket of projects. So some projects are just a developer, a nonprofit, somebody saying, this is a project I'd like to do. Other projects, the public realm come from the community. So when we had public meetings and what we heard from the local planning committee was that Chinatown felt cut off from Lower Manhattan. In the past, a lot of people, the Civic Center would come to Chinatown to eat lunch. That wasn't happening so much. And that a lot of that had to do with So we worked with to city government, we said that we'd really like to reconnect Lower Manhattan, that no longer is a big civic center, but it's more of a place where people live. You know, people work different hours. They're a different community than it was, say, in 1999, 2000. There were also, we wanted to be able to pull the tourists off Brooklyn Bridge down to Chinatown, make sure they were aware. So out of all the projects that were selected, we worked on project development, trying to make sure that projects were real. That means they really had a project sponsor that could implement the project. The entity proposing the project had the capacity to grant state, these are reimbursable dollars. And that the project helped implement the community's vision, goals, and strategies. Ultimately, the local planning committee, we had a public meeting where everybody could do things like put your post-its on boards, tell us what projects you felt really strongly about. And then ultimately, the local planning committee had to come to consensus on a slate of recommended community and priority projects over and above $20 million. Our goal is we can fund a project 100% if it's by a nonprofit or a municipality. But the goal is to leverage additional investment into the community. So ultimately, the Chinatown LDC came to a consensus of a slate of recommended projects. All of this is in what we call the strategic investment plan, which is on the state Department of State's website. And then those projects are submitted to the state. We have different state agencies who look at the projects, and then ultimately the governor comes in and announces it. These are the projects we're going to fund with the $20 million. So out of the projects that we're going to fund, I move forward to the city because we're funding the pit and bird sanctuary as part of the SDR park renovation. But the other three were $4 million for Park Road improvements, $5 million for the expansion and renovation of Penrose Square, and $2.5 million towards the Welcome Gateway project. In talking to the city when we were doing contracting, we decided that their preference was to combine those three together under one contract versus individual contracts. And the city added an additional, at least $55 million to create the Chinatown project. Our funding is to design and construct it. So we didn't design these projects. We totally recognize that $4 million is insufficient to really do what you want to do on Park Road, to really connect, you know, the Brooklyn Bridge, tourist walkway, Lower Manhattan, everything. But that's what we had to do. So since then, we've been sort of supporting the city in their effort forward. In our contract with the city, anything that's related to public realm, we mandate robust participation in the development of that project. Any other questions on the DRI process? Yes.
Right.
Is it possibility where we have received a lot of opposition from the Chinatown community? Can you do the plan to reconstruct the area, the intersections, but not with the arch? Because I understand what the lady was saying about that is a memorial.
Yeah, so we cannot design the project, but we did look at, you know, so what the Welcome Gateway arch sort of, it is defined specifically what that is, as the artist selected, Jennifer said. There is a segment of the community, you know, and we respect that, who very much would like a traditional art. But we also heard from other segments of the community that they'd like something maybe more modern, more to today's world. So that is a process where the community needs to work together with the artists and try to come to what is the best solution for the community. I think everybody who looked at the sort of the idea that you have several things going on in this intersection, you have the statue, you have the memorial arch, and now this would be a third item. And that's something that a designer has to take into consideration. It totally was from day one that every, the existing monuments have to be respected. And I think that's something that the designers take very seriously. So I don't know what the solution is. I know you guys are working on it.
And just to reinforce that we are taking it very seriously, these are all things that have been in constant consideration, not just what's above the ground, it's also what's underground. There are major utilities which will determine the placement of an art piece. And all of these are things that Jennifer went well when she presented her portion of, what she's doing for the research, for the collaboration with our team. We have been all very mindful. And Jennifer, I want to give you the opportunity. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think challenges are actually can be inspiration for creativity. So while I don't have any answers specifically to all these challenging questions, I think this is us as a team together with Marvel. We are in the spirit of taking that on and looking at all these cultural demands, historical demands, as well as logistical and practical demands. So I think you just have to, as part of the course, as a public design project.
And just one other thing I think I'd like to say is that one of the really nice things about the DRI process is it really is a bottom-up process where we're giving you money and you tell us what you want to spend it on. But also, it's really a unifying process, and we just found that the Chinatown community has a lot of terrific groups who do great things, and oftentimes they're kind of working in their own areas, but the unifying process kind of brought them together. They had to work together for the application that came to the state, and they worked together really strongly throughout the DRI process. And that continues, but Chinatown was the first community to get $20 million. And that was because of all the community groups that were supporting this application. Everywhere else is 10.
Yeah, there's the person who couldn't speak online wrote a question. If you want me to just read it.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and read it?
Okay, so the person who was having audio problems wrote 120 businesses surrounding Kinloch Square want to pause the redesign, signed petitions for a town hall, but did not or I think it might be a typo, it says, but did not outreach to these businesses. So that was the comment.
I can respond to that. I think that was very critical or productive criticism for our group at the last CB3 meeting, and that is something that we are continuing to build on. As we said that, this is a long process, and whereas it's started a long time ago, we are continuing to reach out, and we acknowledge that that's one of the groups that we have possibly not reached out to, and we're working with DOT and EDC and the design team to make sure that that is remedied in the very, very near future.
And we also want to add that, when people say they just don't want something, what does that mean? So part of why we keep coming out is to explain the project and explain the beginnings of it and how we got here. So with some of these stakeholders, we would love to engage in some dialogue. Jennifer and Ma is talking to them on a one-to-one basis. So, if there are questions or criticisms, we would love to explain or talk about these things if we knew what the issues were. So I think we're trying to create a project that's super complicated. I cannot tell you how complicated it is. We're only talking about the community. We're also talking about agencies we need to deal with. So the complexities are super complicated. And, I know Casey comes up and he's been talking about traffic for many, many meetings. And sometimes it's hard. Someone told us the other day when we were at the CCWG meeting, wow, this looks like a game of trouble. Like, what are all these colors? Traffic is complicated, and DOT is responsible for making sure things are safe for many modes of transportation. So if there are questions, we'd love to start that dialogue and engagement. We want to know what the concerns are.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this moving along, just so everybody joining us online and also here, we need to be out of this room around 9:30, so we have 2 more agenda items after this, so I'm gonna keep us moving. Annie Zhu, I believe you would like to speak, yeah.
I just have a quick comment. Hi, everyone, I'm Annie and I'm a team member at Think Chinatown, which some of you may know. We're a creative placekeeping nonprofit based here in Chinatown. And we work to create intergenerational spaces of art, joy, and connection. And so on behalf of our organization, I'd like to share that Jen Wen La will actually be our artist in residence this fall. So we plan to host many opportunities just to get to know Jen. So if you have any, questions, feel free to use our space, during our workshops to get to meet Jen. So we're happy to lend our space for these conversations.
Great, thank you so much. I have Irvine Lee. Irving, sorry, and we just have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm Irving Lee, I'm a small property owner and retired transit worker. And doing the proposals, I have concerns about what's actually being stated, the surveys, of course, and people write various things about, pedestrian walkways, and I think that's a great idea, but ultimately, the final proposal is critical, whether or not it's going to be acceptable. And your conception, of what is good, may not be a conception of what people that live in the community, and especially the businesses, because it's critical to have proper traffic flows, making sure that the foodstuffs are delivered, so people who walk through Chinatown can buy the goods, right? So that's critical. That's absolutely critical. In terms of access and why there's some traffic problems, I think the big issue is Park Road. And the fact that Park Road was not mentioned, we discussed the fact that the reason why there's so many traffic problems and safety issues is the fact that Park Road was closed. And that creates a lot of diversion. The cars going to St. James Place as opposed to Park Road, you're going to Ward Street. And I think that it inhibits the natural flow. And I think given what I've seen the preliminary proposals, it's going to create a lot of conflicts. Besides it, you can park. And if you lose the ability to park, you lose businesses. And that would be short term. I think I have to take that into consideration. And the premise behind closing Park Road should be addressed by the community boards and the community as a whole, because there's no real justification for Park Road to be closed. Because it is a political question that needs to be addressed, but I think a lot of it is misinformation about what really happened in 9/11. And there's no real justification for it to be closed. If we want to get into that discussion, we should get into that discussion, because it's part of the overall origin that's been going on for a very, very long time. So a lot of these things should be fixed, and I certainly think that whatever proposals that it does exist, it's critical that we have proper traffic flow and proper participation by the business and people with the community.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say that, just to address that, and please do too, just that no one in this room has made any decisions on what Park Row opening and closing. That was made by the administrations and the police department, so I just want to.
There's some information, I know,
Yeah.
I know there was a survey, and Christopher Marte had initially proposed test phase on the weekend to have traffic flow to Park Road, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen.
I am not aware of that, but we're gonna keep moving on because,
Okay.
yeah, but I appreciate you coming out here tonight. I appreciate everybody here tonight. This is not the last meeting, obviously. You guys will be back here, I think, this fall. This is just many more times that we're going to be out with the public. So again, I thank you so much for that.
Is this the last of the agenda? On this agenda?
I'm sorry?
Is this the last of this agenda?
Yes, we're gonna be moving on. Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I need you, if you need to sign, you need to sign up here. We need to move on. Yeah, we need to, yeah,
That's a quick question.
just quick. Yes, I know you. So just quick, this please. No, you can speak, you can sign it afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, my name is Eleanor, I live in Chinatown. I am just very curious about this design, right, the flip of the traffic plaza. Is there a roadway for those banks
restaurant, a jewelry store for the car to park in front like a bank, they need the armor truck. I don't see no, whatever there, it's all closed around that area. So how could those banks receive shipment from the Federal Reserve? They have to come in, but it looks like it's all closed. The flip.
Yeah, I mean, just at a very high
How are they
level.
going to function? That's my curiosity.
So we
And
make-
so the boundary, we prefer it to be more strict, more instead of quarantine and back to the 103 bus or whatever. But I'm very curious about this part first. Thank you.
Yeah, so for all of our lots projects, we look to make sure we're accommodating business operations, we provide curbs on the side of the block, we'll be working with businesses to make sure that functions. But it's a standard practice for all laws citywide, around these laws citywide. So we work with businesses to make sure their operations are intact. So I'm just.
All right, thank you. And so we're just gonna, I want to ask actually the committee members, because I realized sitting here that I didn't actually have the committee meetings, committee members actually say anything on this topic. So if we can, do you want to put your hand up? Would you like to speak on this? Trump?
Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation. I'm super impressed. I mean, I've been on the board for a few years, and this is the most robust report I've ever seen. And I know it's because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of complexity to it. But I really want to applaud DOT, EDC, all departments, Marvel, for all the work they've done. And I think people should not forget all that effort. I think we, are very critical of government at times, many times, right, for falling short. And not to say that, there can be improvements in this process, but I think we also need to recognize when there's a lot of effort being put forward, a lot of community engagement. And so I want to thank you all. I mean, the figures that really stood out to me are, we know 70% of our district in Manhattan is mostly pedestrians getting around the city, right? 70%. But we're saying 80% in this corridor, at the height, 85% pedestrians. So I understand some of the concerns around vehicular traffic getting to the neighborhood and its impact on businesses in Chinatown. But I think the statistics show we're really talking about people mostly on foot coming in and around, and we want to make it safer. We want to make it so that people linger. We want to make it so that people continue to feel a strong sense of community in Chinatown, and that will help businesses prosper. And also too, this kind of reduction of how much space is being allocated for vehicular usage. I mean, from 66%, I forget the figure you finalized, but you said it would increase pedestrian usage to 50%, which is a big increase. But also that figure, and I wonder if you could speak to that preliminary research of it actually making it, I think, around 15% more efficient for cars, right? Wasn't that something that you stated? I think that's pretty interesting, right? Because one of the things that we're hearing is that people are concerned is going to create more car congestion. But the studies are actually showing counter to that actually is going to be an improvement for vehicular usage in the area. And then, so maybe that's a question for DOT, but I also had a question for Jennifer. You were kind of talking about the engagement that you're doing with community and, really hearing from all the stakeholders and getting feedback. I might have missed it, but what is the final process for decision-making on what the art will look like? Who makes the final decision? Is it you and your team? Is it you and your team approved by the agencies? Like, what's that final decision process look like?
Yes, it's a very robust process. So I'm the the person responsible. So the city has commissioned for me to make the artwork. So I will be creating that work together with my collaborators. I have a team that I work with, and also I'm working with Marvel very closely. So that creative work will come from that. And then once we have different phases, it will be done in different phases for work like this. I will be coming back to CB3 with the next level will be conceptual design. This is when, before I have anything set in stone, this is going to be big concepts, I would like to try this, think about this is how I would address these issues that our communities desire and want or have problems with. So that would be likely a few months down the line. And before that, there's a whole different levels of approval process with each agency that I'm involved with, from EDC, DOT. And then once they approve, then I will come to community board. So that will be vetted. They will talk to me to say, have you considered this? Have you thought about that? Right? So once community board it has approved, then I will go to Public Design Commission. That's a city agency that oversees all public design. This is just for the conceptual design. Once the concept has been approved by the public and PDC, then I would do the next level of more detailed design. At this point, that would be actual form, what it will look like, the height, the dimensions, the materials I'll be using, how it will look. So these will be much more detailed in design. Again, it will be approved by each agency I'm working with and for. And again, I will come to community board and get public approval, and then it will go to PDC. And then that is even, that's just two of the first. And then there's fabrication and installation. So each one will be going through a very rigorous process of being approved. Things for public safety, make sure things don't fall, things are being fabricated correctly, properly, et cetera, et cetera. So at every stage, there's going to be a very robust process of approval.
John, in your mind, how is it ever gonna get done?
No, I mean, I think it's a serious project, so if it takes a few years to happen, that's what it needs to, the process, but I also just wanna make sure that, when we talked about, what was it, the term you used, the plea, the passionate pleas and all that stuff, like that stuff is not just seen as ancillary and, secondhand opinions, but actually taken to account in the process and not overlooked.
So thank you, Sean. I'm gonna keep moving us. Nancy's gonna say something really quick because we need to keep it moving.
I think I'm really glad that you're able to show the level and the depth of community engagement. I think at the last meeting it was misrepresented, and so this is correcting the record. I'm also very happy to hear that you're leaning into some of the gaps that the community has identified. As somebody that has been involved from the beginning, I do want to confirm, verify, emphasize that Kim Lau, Park Road, beautification, SDR, and Gateway, these were all brought to the table by the community. And the reason I can say that is because I was part of the team that submitted the proposal for Park Road beautification. The reason Park Road didn't get additional funding, I think, is because we couldn't come together as a community. And I strongly encourage both the community board members as well as the community to really think about what the issues are, but work to compromise and unify, because we can still be at risk of losing this money. This is one of the first significant investments that I can remember for Chinatown. And we've been begging, asking, pleading, shouting for investments. And I want to ask everyone not to lose sight of that. Yes, we disagree on many things we want, but our goal is always the same. We want improvements, quality of life, safety for our community. And I strongly urge any of the community board members who's not familiar with or want to learn more, I strongly encourage you to engage. I'm happy to give you background, connect with DOT, EDC. The one last thing is because Park Road is always an issue about opening. I was not at the meeting where NYPD basically made the decision and communicated that out. So I'm gonna suggest that we invite NYPD to come and maybe talk to the community about it, because I don't think the decision is with EDC or DOT or the community board. It's really out of our hands, my understanding. So that would, I think, really help communicate to Urban's questions about Park Row and the opening of that. I did have a question, but I'll email it to you, Casey. I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nancy. No, anybody else? Any comments? Okay, thanks. We're gonna move on to the next agenda item. And I believe we have a neighbor, sorry, I want to get this right, Clinton Street neighbors, where we have a presentation on that.
Please consider.
And I'm just gonna ask those folks that are in your conversations outside, there's a lovely lobby out there.
We have family by nine, we have 3 more agenda items.
Yeah, you can take your conversation down to the front lobby. Thank you so much. We have to be out of here in about an hour.
Okay. All right, thanks to the community board for giving us the time to present the community today. My name is Michael. I'm here with Clinton Street Neighbors, a group of people who love our neighborhood and are invested in making it a safer, more pleasant place to live. A few of us are here. Can we go to the next slide? Clinton Street stretches from the FDR at Pier 35 up to East Houston Street, where it becomes Avenue. This presentation will focus on the 3 blocks between Valencia and Houston, which have some unique problems due to the street layout and position relative to the Williamsburg Bridge. Clinton Street is a mixed-use street characterized by dense residential buildings and ground floor cafes, bars, restaurants, retail, and galleries. The roadway is narrow with 1 parking lane, 1 travel lane, and 1 bike lane, all one-way northbound. Next slide. This street is the first right turn off the Williamsburg Bridge, and in fact, the right lane has to turn right. And as a result, the street is considered by Google Maps and other wayfinding apps to be the quickest route to the FDR, coming off the Williamsburg Bridge. And so as a result, any car journey originating in North or Central Brooklyn, headed to huge amounts of Manhattan are routed through Clinton Street. Next slide. Vehicle data says that there are 16,000 daily average vehicles on that segment of the street, which is an astonishing number. Almost none of which is local traffic, so more than 80% of the trips are cut through, meaning they don't originate or terminate on the street. People driving on the street overwhelmingly don't live in the neighborhood and are not shopping or visiting there, they're just cutting through. The number looks astonishing and even looks like a mistake. Clinton Street has 5 to 10 times more traffic than its neighboring side streets. It has about the same amount of traffic as Essex and Allen, which are the primary through roads that have 4 times as many lanes in 2 directions. But to people living on the street, this should come as no surprise at all. This photo is of the Williamsburg Bridge facing toward Manhattan on a typical weekday afternoon. There was an equally long line of cars stretching behind the bridge behind me. And then every single vehicle in this rightmost lane is forced to turn right on the lane. Next slide. As a result, the street is constantly backed up with bridge traffic. Since there is no turning lane, it's just 1 lane straight ahead. And the area has high foot traffic. Drivers making a turn on Rivington, Stanton, or Houston have to wait for crossing pedestrians, which holds up all traffic behind them. Clinton also turns into Avenue B at Houston Street, which causes more delays with turns, as Avenue B and Houston are both 2-way, which creates a lot of clashes of turning. So as a result, the flow rate of traffic onto Clinton from the bridge exceeds the rate of flow off Clinton, which causes this chronic congestion. Next slide. This congestion causes impatience and reckless driving. Drivers run lights, block intersections, and swerve around obstacles. A pedestrian died in hit and run in December when a driver turned right from Clinton Street onto Stanton Street. These 2 photos of cars crashing into the bollard at Clinton and Houston were taken 1 week apart. This is probably happening every week, but there just happen to be people taking photos in the days between those 2 things happening. Next slide. Can we click into this YouTube link, please? You advanced, yeah. Hold on, give me 1 minute here.
That's like it's working here. I'll try one more time.
Can you try to copy and paste it into a new browser tab?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing in top and YouTube.
Just go back to VCRs.
Sometime. Yeah, it doesn't. Not sure why. Maybe you just explain what that video is.
Okay, that video is of 1,000 trucks going down the street. In a few seconds, I'll send the video to you guys later.
1,000, you said?
Yeah, in the past 2 weeks. So Clinton Street sees a disproportionate amount of illegal truck traffic. Clinton is not a truck route, and truck drivers aren't allowed to use it unless the destination is located there, or if they have to use it to get to the destination or to minimize the amount of distance they drive off route. But because Clinton is a shortcut to a lot of destinations, and MIT refuses to prioritize enforcement on this corridor, truck drivers take it chronically. I've counted up to 140 trucks in one day on my street. This video is of 1,300 trucks in the past 2 weeks on Clinton in a time lapse. I'll send you the video. So chronic truck traffic on Clinton causes congestion, poisons the air, and creates unbearable noise from honking and clanging. Next slide. That said, there are a lot of businesses on the street, and so some amount of the truck traffic is here legitimately. However, since there's no loading zone, they have to either double park or block the bike lane to take deliveries. They don't have drivers. Since traffic is constantly backed up on Clinton, this kind of pattern where there is a car double parking the travel lane, traffic backs up into the bike lane behind it, sneaking around it. This dangerous behavior forces cyclists onto the sidewalk or the traffic lane, and impedes emergency vehicle access. So every day out here, an ambulance or a cop car that just can't get through here because everyone's blocking bike lane. Okay, some solutions. Next slide. So we think the best solution is to just eliminate the right turn off the bridge onto Clinton. This is the current traffic pattern. If we go to the next slide, we can require a merge from the rightmost lane onto the third rightmost lane, which has all traffic continue onto Delancey. Access to Clinton Street is maintained by the Delancey Street service road here, so you can still get to this block. And this would also allow us to repurpose the rightmost lane of the Williamsburg Bridge as a fast lane for buses and emergency vehicles, which often get backed up, stuck in traffic as it backs up halfway up the bridge. Enforcement would be easy because we already have license plate scanners installed with the congestion pricing cameras to the bridge, so super easy to enforce. Next slide. If doing this isn't feasible, an alternative is to add diverters to a few intersections, which would force most vehicles to make a turn instead of continuing straight on, but allow access to emergency vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians to continue. So this basically makes it so that vehicles only end up on that street if they are starting or ending their trip there. Every block remains accessible, no parking is removed, emergency vehicle access remains the same, Clinton is just no longer useful as a through route, because cut-through traffic is better served by Essex Street instead, which has 2 lanes in each direction and a turning lane. Note we need to add diverters to Norfolk as well, because if we do it just to Clinton, then the traffic ends up turning right up to Norfolk, that's so 3 areas. Next slide. Before I can go back one, an example of this, an existing example of this pattern that's been implemented is here at Union Square West and East Street, where you just have to turn right, you can't continue forward onto the Union Square West. So DOT does this all the time, it works great. Next slide. Another alternative is to borrow a feature from the Berry Open Street in Williamsburg. So cars are permitted on Berry, but the street's design prevents cut-through traffic by switching the traffic direction every few blocks. So in this example, like the traffic here is this way and the traffic here is this way, you just have to turn, but bikes and pedestrians and emergency vehicles can continue to go through. So just as with the diverter option, changing the direction of traffic on one block of Clinton would prevent through traffic while maintaining local and emergency vehicle access throughout the street. Next slide. Aside from redesigning the street to reroute through traffic, there are 2 common sense and uncontroversial safe measures we want to bring to Clinton Street. The first is daylighting at intersections, which basically means removing 1 or 2 parking spots at the corners. This improves visibility at intersections and makes turning much safer. It also prevents fire hydrants being blocked by people parking. This photo is a great example of daylighting that's up in Brooklyn, which is just 1 block west of Clinton. We improve visibility and turning at this intersection. We should do this at every intersection between Clinton, on Clinton between Delancey and Austin. Next slide. The second intervention here is neighborhood loading zones, which is the city's existing solution to the common problem of chronic double parking and bike lane blocking. This is a slide I took from DOT and it perfectly describes the condition on Clinton Street, where we have a narrow street, big residential buildings, businesses, there is a bike lane and double parking happens all day long. Putting one loading zone in each of the 3 blocks between the Lansing House and on Clinton would tame the chaos on the street considerably. Next slide. To anyone skeptical of these changes, look no further than Orchard Street, which is a few blocks west, for proof that urban design that prioritizes people is a boon to business and the simplest way to transform a street for the better. This image is from Google Street View, July 2011, so like about 15 years ago. And it looks basically the same as how Clinton Street looks like today. If you go to the next slide, the open street on Orchard instantly transformed the street into the most popular street in the neighborhood. People first streets are great for safety, great for the environment, great for quality of life, and also great for business. Next slide, which is the last slide. Just one kind of parting thought about why I care about this so much personally. So I've lived in New York City for 10.5 years and in this neighborhood for the last 3. I'm a homeowner on Clinton Street. I'm getting married later this year and we'd like to start a family here together. And I really love this neighborhood and I'd love to be able to stay here. But the thought of like my kid walking to school or learning how to ride a bike or visiting friends on my street is just super scary. I don't mind the noise or the crowds or the party goers or all other aspects of the neighborhood, but like the drivers are really, really scary. So please help me make it easy to think about where to raise a family in your city. Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming out, advocating for your neighborhood. This is the place to start that advocacy, so I really, thank you for coming out here, giving us presentation. I didn't hear from anyone that would like to speak on behalf of this agenda item in the room. If anyone joining us online would like to speak, put your hand up. But I'm gonna start with the committee. David, I see your hand first.
Great, I think so. I would love to see every block changing. It happens down south of Delancey, which is where I now live. I used to live north of it. It does prevent cars from going straight through because they can. I don't know if there's something would be obviously that has to be kind of neighborhood wide, but the diagrams he drew are great. It's also great, you know, some the ability to go straight. You just got to turn. That's another way to do it. I don't know. It is a problem that all that traffic that you saw that was going to turn right, they do have to turn right. That was done intentionally. Back when they did the Delancey Street pedestrian safety thing, which was a big win, but it did push all this onto Clinton Street. I'll add one more thing that you didn't point out, but if you want to cross Clinton Street at Delancey and you're on the north side and you're, you know, just looking across, the light says don't go for the entire time when it's safe to go. And then just as signs let those car turns right, it says walk. And so it creates a conflict between pedestrians and all those cars. And it's because I have watched it and argued with my husband, we need to go now. He's like, no, it says don't. The reason that they've done that is while the cars cannot cross Delancey directly to the right, so you can't go north and south, but when that light is green, ordinarily you would say don't walk. But literally it's a T intersection. And unfortunately, they've done the light as if it's a through intersection. So anyway, I can talk with you later about it, but that would be a very, very quick win for pedestrians. But it's not going to solve the problem of all this traffic going up Clinton to get to Houston to go to both sides of the bridge. The traffic patterns between the FTR and the bridge are terrible.
I actually completely agree here. Just from a standpoint of pedestrian and seeing Clinton Street, myself using that right turn lane, that vehicle owner in the neighborhood, it is the only kind of way to kind of go north to kind of get around. So you see the cars actually do that. The one question again, I think that there is some like low hanging fruit here to kind of like talk about like hearing the trucks going on that street illegally, like what signage we do have represented from DOT here on the bridge. And I don't actually remember seeing any signage of like no trucks the right lane or anything like that, or maybe they need to be bolstered or something like that, just for the truck traffic is dangerous and shouldn't be on that, it's illegal. To be on that road, and you know, how do you enforce that, which is another issue that I think is difficult for us to deal with. 1,600 trucks is, that's tremendous, I don't know, that is, are you hand counting or do you have some electronic type of?
I automated most of it, but yeah, it's one every few minutes.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Just so you're aware, we, from a committee here and through the community board, we have already asked DOT to locate neighborhood loading zones on Clinton Street. That was a request from business owners on Clinton Street to do that. It was right around Rivington, if I remember. If there are more needed, those would be something that we could also, you know, advocate for with DOT to locate those. And I'm not sure what the where they are in getting signage, but that was something I think we did I want to say last summer or fall. I saw Sean, your hand up first.
This is a question for or Susan, whoever might know. We know we have this big capital project happening on the landscape, right? Like when is that happening? And is there still a moment in that project to propose some of these kind of enhancements? Like if we made a resolution to reconfigure that right lane coming off the bridge. For those who don't know, there's a massive capital project that's gonna happen on the land sea from the bridge going west, and they're gonna tear up all the streets and reconfigure and make like a seating plaza in the center. It's gonna be all nice and stuff, but the timing of it is a question. And then like, is there a moment for us to engage in some of the design there? So that's the question. And then I just want to say that to Michael and whoever else is here from your crew, you know, my daughter, you know, she's starting middle school next year. That is the street we cross to get to her middle school. She's gonna be going to middle school in Suffolk, and it's terrifying to think about, you know, when do I start letting her go to school on her own? Like, how do you get across the land sea? How do you navigate these streets? So I too can really sympathize with like the most vulnerable users going through that corridor. And the fact that, yeah, I have, you know, so many times in the community board, we're hearing from agencies and agencies asking for resolutions and support for things. And I really just want to encourage more people to do what Michael and others have done, and like community members bringing forth their issues and us thinking about resolutions that we can do together jointly. That's really exciting. So the question about the landscape.
So we're actually getting briefed by DOT on the landscape, I think next week, so you will have an answer soon. And I would ask, what was the other one? What did you say? You asked something else.
No, like is there a moment in that process that
Oh,
we still?
I'm gonna ask Kate to answer that.
I'll jump in with that. Like Susan mentioned, we're going to be meeting next week with DDC and CB3 to go over updates on the project. Right now, DDC is still in the process of awarding contracts for the construction work to begin. So we're waiting for that to be completed before we'll have an official timeline. And just to emphasize, so the Delancey Street redesign has federal funding, and the design, you know, was developed, you know, a few years ago and is going through the process before it can be built. And because of the federal funding, we are limited in the changes that we can make to, you know, the large part of to make major changes to the design. DOT will likely be able to make smaller markings changes, signal timing changes, things that we would do with our own toolkit, but that we're not able, at this moment, it's unlikely that we'll be able to make major changes to the Delancey Street redesign without risking the loss of federal funding. And also just going back to the question about the trucks and point, Vinny mentioned the signage. So you're correct, there isn't signage right now that instructs trucks to proceed to the truck route. DOT is planning to install signage coming off the Williamsburg Bridge. So telling truck drivers to use the nearest truck route, which is Allen Street, but that's pending installation. And we've also asked NYPD as well to do more enforcement at that where trucks are coming off and going onto the street as well.
I'm gonna just say the trucks on routes that are not truck routes are very common complaint. I think it's hard to enforce because they're allowed to be on a street if they're actually delivering there and kind of knowing whether that's happening or not, it, I guess makes it difficult, but it's a very common complaint we get in CB3.
I'd argue that's a reason to do a design solution rather than an enforcement solution, because it makes using the street.
Well, for that street,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, it is a common problem.
I just wanna get through the committee members, let's start down there.
So I just had a follow-up on that, and you said that signage is like pending installation, what does the timeline look like for that? And also, I know you said that there's been prior conversations with NYPD in terms of enforcement, like when have those taken place? Is that been a recent issue, or is that just like historically something that's been requested?
I would have to check the timeline for the signage. It is unique. It's a new sign that's being created and designed specifically for the Williamsburg Bridge. So I'll have to check the timing of that. NYPD, this has kind of been more of a historic issue, but we were having conversations with them, you know, the latest probably a few months ago, asking them to go back out, and to do the enforcement here, and it's something our office, from the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office hasn't received. We've received complaints about this in the past, haven't received that many like in the last few weeks or so. But, you know, we tend to reach out to NYPD when we hear from people. But obviously knowing this is like a years long issue.
Thank you, Michelle. Just the red light, yeah, at the bottom, the Williamsburg or yeah.
We did install we're not allowed to share the exact locations of our automated enforcement cameras, but we did. Well, there's a new camera installed in the vicinity of the bridge.
Okay, and what's the next step with something like this?
So with this, really appreciate all the suggestions. I think if you could send us a copy of it. I think we emailed maybe 2 weeks ago, so nice to see you in person. Yeah, I will wait for a CB3's resolution and also share your presentation and suggestions with our different divisions that do traffic engineering and planning, see if what they think, look at the traffic volumes and what the implications would be of banning a turn. We also look at the crash history as well when making these design decisions. But it would be evaluating it from here.
And would you be able to evaluate the impact of Norfolk as well? Because if you close the turn onto Clinton, you'll get diverted to Norfolk, which is what's historically happened below Delancey. I mean, I've been saying, like, we've had millions of a year, I've been out of this made for 7 years, and I feel like we just come back and about this bridge, it's a problem for our neighborhood, it's a huge problem, it doesn't feel like DOT does very much about it. And it's like, you know, you divert here, it goes here, it's a volume problem. I mean, I don't understand why we don't just funnel it all to Allen Street in the same way that you know, if you want to go south of Delancey, you have to go all the way to Allen Street.
Yeah, we will look at the implications for the other blocks. That would be part of the evaluation, mapping out where the traffic is going to go. You're right that it is a volume problem. And that's something that is hopefully maybe addressed more in the future as congestion pricing continues. But we'll take these suggestions that we have here today and look at them.
Yeah, I would just like it has to be evaluated holistically, not just as like one street, because we'll just get problems the other place, the other small street. So yeah, thank you.
Great, I'm gonna move it to David.
A little more history on what happened here in the 80s and then in the 90s, when they decided to redo the Williamsburg Bridge. Well, that's the only good thing Trump ever did for the city was fixing that bridge. There was a promise, they did reverse flow on Arches, or call it went south for those 3 blocks. And there was a promise made that it would be reverted to north as soon as the bridge opened, which happened in the early 90s. And then when the the pedestrian thing, the safety thing went through, they put in the current pattern. It is only paint striped and some bollards to prevent that 4-lane from going all the way up to Suffolk. And then even up to Norfolk, but then it's a right turn only, and after that, there is red striped lanes, and it's 2 lanes only on Delancey beyond, Norfolk Street. All that would have to change to make this work. But if there's any way to just make the Williamsburg Bridge have 3 lanes, make the other one a safety lane, as he described, that is the only thing I think that will really solve this problem without a huge change to the street geometry, probably future projects, I bet, that there's other levels of government involved. I would love to see Delancey to the Williamsburg Bridge reduce to 3 lanes, both eastbound and east and west. Just make the bridge a little harder to cross, so put a toll on it. What? Yeah, put a big toll on it. So it's something, because it's unfair that our neighborhood is paying that toll for everybody.
And I want to just add to that too, because and one of the things is like with the capital project, I think we're all very excited about the capital project, the Delancey Street needs it, it's building phase to building phase. And I think, there's painting that's been done inside of Delancey Street, that was done many years ago before it's this crossing development. And I think that's kind of really what we're interested on is like, you have this ability that there's paint already in the street, there's probably utility work that needs to get done before you're doing the street, like the. The project itself, I think, is 5 years long once construction starts to end, so like, we're not gonna see curbs going in until probably 2028, 29, if we're lucky. And so like in that ability, is there a way for DOT to kind of come up with some different designs that make the whole corridor, not just that Clinton Street, because I am really interested in the whole corridor of what the traffic is there today, and are there improvements that we can do with see how it's functioning, and how that can be, rolled into this project without delay, knowing that there's federal funding. I don't think anybody on this committee, I'll speak for us, and you'll tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think we want to delay the project and lose out on the federal funding, but I think we really want some common sense safety improvements on the corridor that are from today. What traffic is there today, we have congestion pricing in, we're here in Clinton Street, this is. We look at the most dangerous corridors in our district, where only 20% of the people that live in commute Ward 3 own a vehicle, and use that for commuting and those types of things, where we are subject to a lot of traffic coming through. How do we make it safe for people who actually call this home, how we're raising kids? I think I have kids that are living and being raised in the same neighborhood, how do we make it safe for them? While also we are part of the original bridge infrastructure and know that, and how do we make that work for everyone? And I think there's that middle ground and we can all figure that out. Anybody else would like to speak on this?
There's 2 people on my.
Okay, thanks.
So I do think that we need to improve when we do want to do the child safety, or that I agree with, but if somehow we redirect plans and no cars will go there, if that's what I'm understanding, right? There's only gonna be one big party, like the volume of party is gonna be a lot more, right? And because now it's not gonna be no cars going through, so now you're gonna have other problems, as well as, which will increase the volume of noise. You won't have a pollution of the cars going on that block, but you'll have more party going and more of that going on. But you also, what's up with the businesses that are in that strip too, like they won't even get their deliveries, how do they manage?
I don't think the proposal is calling for like an open street, it's calling for only local traffic. So traffic coming off of, what's that street that turns into? Yeah, Barrett Street. Like, so they'll still have local traffic. The proposal that they're saying is not saying for closure fully of Clinton Street to cars. It's just the cars coming off the bridge would be restricted.
Yeah, but either way, the cars, you're talking about cars, just all the cars being restricted from going there. They still have to, either way, if they go straight, right? What happens to the people who are gonna get deliveries on that front?
There's no restriction on traffic on the street. It just prevents using the street as a through route. You can still get to every block of Clinton Street. We can look at the diagram if you want. It doesn't block cars from getting anywhere. It just prevents the street from being used as a through route.
That's cut through.
But you're not gonna stop, well, we have other people, like, you're not gonna stop it, if I am driving, right? And I wanna go through that street. I'm a driver, I have ability, I'm just gonna go. And you can give me the option, doesn't mean I'm gonna go down the option that you give to, you know?
No, there's design things we can do to physically restrict cars being able to access from the bridge, from, so.
Yeah, but either way, it goes the same car.
It's
If you
been,
have to go, if you have to go all the way over here, you have to go all the way to a certain distance to even insurance somewhere, it's the same, it's gonna happen, it's gonna be the same thing.
it's been implemented successfully in many different places of the city, and we can provide material in the appendix if you want.
Yeah, so let's, we have to keep moving around because it is 8:35, we have one more agenda item on here, we have two folks, to speak here. I think this is like something that, we're gonna continue with this as an agenda item, just for Delancey Street, again, this whole thing with Quinn Street. I think there is some type of resolution in here of safety, there was a traffic death here. I started talking about all of our, which we're gonna get to, the district needs is that Delancey Street, Houston Street, Clinton Street, Essex Street, all these other streets are our most dangerous streets in the neighborhood. And those are things that like we can like really base off of like where we spend time to actually make safer, make these streets work for the neighborhood, for the people who actually live on them. Anybody else in the community before I go to folks online? All right.
Unless John Klein can speak now.
And John, I'm just gonna give you a minute here, and I apologize for that, but we're running out of time.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try and be quick. Hi, everyone. My name is John Klein. I'm a resident living on 3rd Street and Avenue A, also a member of Community Board 5. So appreciate you all doing your work on the community board. I just wanted to echo my support in favor of doing something on Clinton Street. I bike on this street all the time coming home across from the bridge, and it's just really difficult being a biker with all of the truck traffic, all the pedestrians, low visibility. So any sort of meaningful traffic change we can do to help kind of decrease the traffic or slow it down, very much in support of.
Next one is Irene Wu again. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. It's me again, Irene Wu. So, my concern with that is that, cars still do have to get onto the FDR drive. And so if cars are diverted or not allowed to enter on Clinton Street, then it would be diverted to Norfolk Street. And, we keep talking about congestion and pollution. I mean, just having to travel those extra blocks, it's a problem. And on top of that, there's a whole neighborhood, right? A whole world that's east of Clinton Street. And, and then same thing, these cars will no longer be able to turn on Clinton and would have to then go down to Norfolk and then circle around again. And, once upon a time, left turns were permitted on Essex Street. So, so residents living south of Delancey will also have a problem, right? This will have a major impact, right, on all the cars trying to get onto the FDR or to get to the neighborhoods east of Clinton and also south of Delancey. And there are a lot of co-ops there, a lot of families, right? Elderly, actually. The people are.
Thanks, Irene. I apologize. We need to keep moving on. We have another agenda item.
There's one more person now, Ira.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Irene, have 1 minute.
Okay, I put a bunch of questions or comments in the chat. First, could you provide a link for the Delancey redesign? And second and third, it's criminal that without the paint to block bridge traffic, Google Maps directs traffic to that Clinton Street. It's crazy. And it's also criminal that EMS would get stuck behind a clog of cars. That's a disrespect to that neighborhood. Absolute. The proposal to just paint the box for the turnoff is sufficient. Do those things. Allow buses and EMS to go through. That's all you need.
Thanks, Ira. I appreciate it. Have a good night. Okay, Thank you for coming out here. Really appreciate advocating for your neighborhood. We're gonna move on to our final agenda tonight, which is our district.
I might, you should reach out to us so that we can.
Yeah, we do have a resolution number.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to share. What is screen here? Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. I had to open it.
Does everybody have a copy? It's really good to get.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to share because again, this is something. All right. So Susan, so last time we saw district needs service statement, there was, we reviewed it, the office is gonna update it. I also made some additions to it, working with a few committee members that sent me some items. Super much go.
Okay, so we're finalizing it now. We're not voting till October when we also do budget priorities. But we have shown all the track changes on here. There are still, we just mentioned the 5 more most dangerous intersections. We still need to check that to see if it's changed. And then you see below that, I think Benny probably added that on that section on the westbound bike lane.
Yeah, so this one I can speak really quick to it. So this is on Delancey Street. This goes back to like the Delancey Street design. The bike lane, the westbound bike lane ends at Allen Street. And so what that happens is that we have bikes that are going up, and then you have any bikes wanting to go west in the neighborhood. They're hitting Rivington Street, and then they're actually having to have to go through Sarah D. Roosevelt Park in the park to cross over. So it's saying that we should have that westbound bike lane extended to Christie Street. So we would have a 2-way bike lane the whole length of Atlantic City Christie.
And you can see on the top bullet points on all the updated crash data that there's significantly less crashes, injuries, fatalities. Good thing.
Yeah, and that's overall, I think the whole city is seeing that, which is a very good.
Next page under public transportation, just updated the percent of workers that do not use a car, which decreased. Following page, is about rats. We are still one of the 4 rat reduction zones in New York City, which means we're number 4 of the 59 wards in our rat problem. I am still waiting for Department of Health to update the statistics on that, so we'll just plug in the new stats. Under sanitation, I took out the bullet point on litter basket pickup because that's gonna be one of our budget priorities. It always is, so that will be in the budgets. And educational opportunities are needed. That doesn't seem to be a top priority. First of all, there are lots of, there are constant educational opportunities by sanitation.
I remember this coming on last year because we had small building owners when everything kind of came to containerization, they were like out of the loop, and it was something that we did, but it might not be relevant.
Yeah, so
Like
I
a year
would take that out.
Yeah.
And we've even hosted, meaning for trees even hosted, but they do constantly do that. Took out the section about composting and guidelines and priorities. And this didn't really mention any needs, but as far as a priority for funding, that we always put that in our environment. It doesn't show track changes, but this is your track change, right?
Yeah, I think oh yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't for some reason the track changes or
Yeah.
accepted, but these are this is what Vivian referred to that is updated.
Yeah, so this was me working with a committee member, And it was to really talk about just the environment and some of the flooding that occurs during like rain events. So this is not really talking about the East River or something like that flooding. Neighborhood, this is like heavy rains. What can we do? And so what DEP does is I went online and looked at the DEP websites, and they have like locations where we flood in the neighborhood when we have severe rain events. And so those are listed. So asking that, you know, that's where we are saying that that's where they should put community infrastructure. They were going to put it in the neighborhood. So less than all those intersections and locations.
We had a citation that are worried about this.
Yeah.
And then, the next to the last part is public safety, which is also improved. Both the serious crimes. And then we, updated the chart on the back, which we get right from the, police department online. So we just updated that chart. So there's been the last.
Great.
The part below the chart says there's been a significant decrease in other complaints regarding drug use. That is actually not true. I'm gonna rewrite that. There is this,
Opposite.
what?
It needs to be the opposite.
It is the opposite, and I will rewrite that. There's two, so I think, a staff member updated the numbers. And she was confusing 311 complaints with complaints to the community board. So what is listed is actually number of 311. I will rewrite that just because there is an increase in the number, a significant increase in complaints directly to the board. And that's it. So you know, basically the updates are just all, you know, they're all cited where we got them from. They're all open data, crash data, and Furman report. Any questions, comments, John?
Can you just, I know we always do this, but can you just spend 30 seconds explaining what the district needs?
Sure.
Is and why community members should find it significant and what they can do with the district needs statement from community board?
Sure, thank you for asking that. And I also just thought of something that's not in here.
Oh, okay.
You know what? 11th Street. Shouldn't we have something on it?
Oh, wait, on what?
11th Street.
Oh, 11th Street. Why, we did have something on 11th Street.
What?
Second Avenue? No, wait.
No, the app delivery workers are. Yeah, no, First Avenue. Did it get dropped? Was it?
That's really obvious. I remember, did we have that in last year?
I don't remember, I certainly checked, but we can write up a small thing and then people will see that in October.
And this was just asking for like more infrastructure, more bike racks, more this, and I remember us having that.
So I think, yeah, and I'll very quickly, very quickly, just on that subject. We did have a very good meeting with the app companies, the 3 app companies. And they seemed willing to put effort into finding spaces, renting spaces, you know, to get this off street, or at least, you know, off street, either inside or off street and out, you know, fenced in area.
It's in there.
Oh, it is, where is it?
Page 10.
Pardon?
Page 10, right in the middle, community district 3 had the continuing increasing demand for delivery.
So is it, why is it on here? You're saying
It's on the copy that you sent me.
So you're,
It says 10 pages.
Yeah, right here.
okay, so this isn't the whole thing, must be copied that.
No, it's here.
But it's not on page 10, it's on page 10.
Oh, page 3, okay. Everybody might be here.
Oh, it just wasn't changed.
It's on the,
Okay, so it's here, but it wasn't changed, so we're good.
yeah, it's that.
Yes, so, the 2 under sanitation, aren't all of the budget district meetings, all the budget priorities supposed to be able to point back at some of these things?
Well, the need can point, this doesn't talk about what a need is, it says we need this, but it doesn't, it's not. it's not giving what the problem is and it's not citing what the problem is. It's just saying we need it, which we will say again in the budget priorities. You're not getting any stats about like how dirty it is or anything.
We can't say the baskets fill up, immediately on every weekend, and it's just disgusting.
Well, again, that's anecdotal, that's anecdotal, there should. But it isn't, and one, it isn't in here, well,
But yeah,
And-
you can't get a stat, because I don't.
that's not true. There are sanitation statistics on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wanna say and for sanitation, we do have. Oh, you're talking about the pickup that we did talk about that.
Yeah, we didn't say
Additional litter,
about the anything.
additional litter baskets should be deployed around the exit crossing, litter basket pickup should be, but that's what it's
But that's exactly what we're gonna say in the budget priorities,
Yeah.
is that we want more money to have baskets pushed here.
Okay, well. I don't think we should move from here, even though they duplicate exactly, because the two documents are for different purposes.
It's actually, they're put together with the app that we put the information in, it's all one document, it's not two different documents. And so it will be there, it will be in the same document. Going to Sean's point, so the district needs statement, which we are required by city charter to do every year. Is for our neighborhood, it describes what we have, kind of who we are, what we have, what our needs are. And then as David was talking about, pointing to priorities, we will then request, we want to get money into the community for programs that satisfy our needs that are not being met. It is not a policy statement, and it should be documented as much as possible, because anecdotal information doesn't mean a lot to agencies. This will go to the agencies. We will meet with the agencies in September and talk about what programs, so we have our needs here. We will talk to the agencies about programs that we do need, such as extra budget, pickup from sanitation, those kind of programs. We'll find out what the funding is, we'll find out if the pickups have decreased and whether they've increased. I would actually, if we were gonna put something in here about why we need it, I think I would put in something about the nightlife statistics creating the problem. And so anyway, it is used by the agencies to see what our community is looking for. It's used by nonprofits who are looking at needs in the community. We have nonprofits in the area that actually quote our district needs. Hospitals, when they do their district needs statement, they will quote our, look at our district needs and again, quote our district needs to inform what they are doing in the community. So it is widely used. It is on our website if you want to look at the one from last year. We will have, in September, we are required by city charter to have a public hearing to hear from the community on what you think budget priorities are, how money should be spent in the community. This is not participatory budgeting, which is generally for how a pot of money should be spent. This is to say how we want agencies like Department of Transportation, Sanitation to spend money in our community. Kate, you want to add anything?
I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Okay. Any questions about that? So David, how about if I do some stats about how we have more money, less than almost everyone?
It could be great.
I will add that. What? Well, we just did the SLA one last night, so we have all the statistics about how we have more life.
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
Oh, alright.
Yeah, could we add also for the public transportation section more about the buses? Like, I know it says here, like it aids more, like there's statistics on like the percentage of the neighborhood that relies on public transportation, but do we have any statistics? Not just on the M14 A and D, but also on the M22 and M21 on like delays and how long that takes that we could.
I'm sorry. No.
Delays regarding bus timing, could we add that to this to explain a bit on like what kind of resources we need for these buses?
Well. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but, at. Where are you, where would you get that information? If you wanted to research it and do the stats for it, and we can have a few, I would say a few lines.
Okay, I'll send it to you directly.
Yeah,
And you're, just so I understand, so you're asking to like add in like under, where we have.
Where it says
Public
public transportation, it mentions by name the M14 A and B services, asking for increased service. I think it would be helpful to include maybe some statistics there on gaps in services for bus routes in our neighborhood. Because I do think that A and D actually run better than some others, like the M21 and M22. So I just wanna see like if I can, if that's available out there, which ones have stronger, bigger delays.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
the M21 is much worse, that's the one, but the first would be the bullet first. If I could just mention, there's this constant, they wanna put money in now to making the buses faster. And, like on one line that they're talking about, was gonna, enforcement is going to increase by 6, or decrease. A bus line for 6 minutes, which is from end to end, so for most people, it would decrease their bus ride for like a minute or two. Which totally doesn't address the fact that if you're waiting 20 or 30 minutes for a bus, no one here is asking us to save 1 minute. It's they're not looking at getting from point A to point B, they're not considering at all how long you wait for the bus, just only how fast the bus is going. Which we've made that point in presentations. But it seems like
20 years I was on the board.
what?
There were 20 years that I was on the board.
I wasn't.
Oh, it's the board can make that point.
Yeah.
Over and over.
We have a new mayor who never heard it clearly. You saying something?
Okay, we're gonna call it a night, so.
Wait, one more.
Oh,
I just wanna say that I noticed, I gave up my card, I used to get traveling on the bus, and I noticed that the actual safety, which they wouldn't be no better on this either, that's if it's a survey. Is that as soon as you get on the bus, that bus driver will take off, it doesn't matter if there's elderly people in the front, they literally like, they all eyes, right? And it's dangerous because anybody could hit their head, you know what I mean, and they got hurt stuff.
They're probably trying to.
Improve,
Yeah, that's probably, but give good stats for going fast.
all right, we're gonna do roll call.
Vincent Sarita,
Here.
Nancy Kong, present, Tanya Bates, President Lee Berman,
President.
Ariadne Chu, present, Sean Garcia, present, Charlie Wilson, and Michelle Peterson, present, Francisco LeBron.
Present.
Well, he's not, anybody who's not,
Barring, Perez, absent, Julie, sorry. Rolandi Velasquez, they were saying, no,